optimistic of a truce, Hamas has expressed dissatisfaction of the latest proposal, and Israel continues to draw red lines.
Antony Blinken's mission is to get a ceasefire proposal over the line. But Washington's cautious optimism is not shared by either of the warring sides. The Israeli Prime Minister has accused Hamas of being uncooperative.
Hamas up to this moment remains obstinate. It didn't even send a representative to the talks in Doha.
The militant group, meanwhile, says the Israeli government is the one blocking the deal.
Netanyahu is fully responsible for thwarting the agreement and bears full responsibility for the lives of hostages.
The latest proposal, which has the support of most of the international community, would freeze fighting.
wesn.
One that, with no small amount of irony, kind of fits, right, when you think about it. Because generally speaking, things seem to be simple when we talk about it, or simplified by how we talk about it, and yet the practice, the results, don't come as easily as we would expect them to. Now, part of the problem is the fact that usually the issues are not that simple, no matter how much they seem to be. Why are people hungry? We should get them more food, right? But then how do you source the food? How do you distribute this food? At some point, somewhere along the way, the unfortunate side effect of human nature is that there will be those that act in bad faith who will upset the apple cart. It could be corruption on the distribution end. It could be corruption on the receiving end. And then, of course, human inefficiency also has a part to play. But I do think that perhaps this quote, we can't necessarily take it literally, because to some extent, even bad politicians tend to not want to step out of line unless they have some sort of incentive. They don't just randomly find issues for the sake of issues, unless they're looking for scapegoats. But again, that's an incentive to do so. It's not just something that is done for the sake of doing it. Or the population has a scapegoat, or something that they determine that they want to achieve. Whether it is right or not is a separate story. It has been determined by consensus. Regardless, the spirit of the quote speaks to the fact that we don't get it right more often than not. And not just that we don't get it right, but then even if we do identify the problems, more often than not, the remedies, they fall short. And now I do wonder if we are in a similar situation once again. In fact, there is to some extent inconsistencies, I find, with the actions taken to remedy situations, some of which we didn't even necessarily know how bad of a situation they were, and the actions confirm it for us, which is ironic and interesting in and of itself. I am to some extent speaking about the HDC. We'll get into that later with Santa Rosa's cancellation. But government tends to need to have an incentive to do things. Not necessarily an incentive to do it incorrectly. A whole host of reasons could bring that up. but they do need to have an incentive to even attempt to do something. And I guess now we have to ask ourselves, what is that incentive? And granted, we ourselves are not going to get it right all of the time either. But given the fact that we are technically the voting public, the collective we has a responsibility to ourselves to at least pay some attention some of the time instead of mostly ignoring it all of the time. Because then to what extent now, because it could be actually a misidentification by the government, or it could be actions in bad faith. But the irony of that situation is, well, the result is the same. Whether by accident or intentional, a bad move could lead to a very bad result, bad consequences. Even if it was unintended, even if it was an oopsie, that's the stakes by which a government plays the game. This is not just someone that owns a fruit cart. And if anything goes wrong, well, it's just their fruit stand that goes out of business. If something goes wrong with the government, a lot of us could go out of business. But we just don't seem to fully grasp that level of collective responsibility. And we are ending up with situations like this, where I do wonder, to what extent is the world being pulled over our eyes and we are willingly holding it there, keeping it closed. Sean Michael Small here. This is talking about a WESN content capital. Perhaps we might be the voice in the wilderness, the lone voice. Perhaps we might just be classified as discontent, malcontents, contrarians. But I think at the end of the day, to what extent is that based on biases of one's own judgment? Or to what extent are our judgment based on biases of our own? Well, to get further into it so you could decide for yourself, let's start off today's Daily Review. And there was a special PNM convention held at Napa, by which the party has expressed its desires with regards to constitutional reform. Now, the first thing I want to point out with this is the fact that I do find it interesting that the government has an exercise, or they held an exercise where they did consultations for constitutional reform. Then they decided to have a special convention, which apparently has either accepted or rejected certain things. And it makes me wonder, and you might argue that I am arguing semantics here or I am being nitpicky, but I say nay. We went through a national exercise, and then after the national exercise, the PNM is allowed to themselves nitpick at the different things proposed, maybe add things that they themselves might want to see. To what extent is that undermining the whole consultation process? It's interesting that the party gets the final say on what is supposed to be national, a national self-determination based on, well, not even what we would assume to be the total membership of the PNM having their say, rather just what could fit in Napa. That alone makes me beg the question to all of you. To what extent can we truly look at this whole thing as being done in good faith? Because it makes me wonder, to what extent was the whole national consultation exercise just a dog and pony show? Because at the end of the day, the party must speak on things that are national. The party because somehow the PNM is the constitutionally engraved government of the country, apparently. Now, granted, I am to some extent being facetious, oversimplifying it. Yes, their party should have some input in what policy decisions that they would like to do. It's just that, again, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth when the party could come after the fact and potentially make changes. Now, maybe that's not the case, but now we have to ask to what extent is that true or not true? Because one of the things that was not reported on, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember these things coming up per se. And it makes me wonder to what extent that the party is trying to link them in order to frame the narrative in a certain way to make number 2 much more palatable than number 1. Because the Prime Minister has, apparently at the special convention, the steel pan is going to replace the 3 ships on our coat of arms, as you see. Now, personally, while I understand that I'm not going to discount the fact that, yes, to some extent, the emotions behind these sorts of moves are valid, dare I ask how many people really and truly complained about the 3 ships on the coat of arms before? Was it really an issue, or was it one of those things where when someone tells you it's an issue, all of a sudden you get riled up and you can't unring the bell, you can't unsee the issue? And I could be wrong. But before anybody wants to bring up race into the equation, I would just like to remind you, at least by my best reckoning, there are no white smalls in TNT. Let me just say that up front. Now, with that said, as a racial outsider that I am, so perhaps my perspective is unique, it is what it is. It is the coat of arms that we got. Do we need to change it? I would say no. If the country wants to change it, sure. My issue is not necessarily changing it in and of itself. My issue is, after a time when reparations came up, and that's a very emotionally charged issue. I understand. I would just like it done with a degree of responsibility and not just based totally on emotion. But let's move that aside. Now we get this statement, and then tacked on at the same convention, we get the fact that the Prime Minister, the government, the PNM, they want to move on from the Privy Council. A sentiment which is, in the long run of any nation, understandable. It's just that within the context of the last term, I'm not even going to go to before 2020, I'm just talking about the last term. More often than not, one of the defenses that we have for our democracy has been the Privy Council. Need I remind you about the results from the case with regards to the local government elections, where the local judges, well, they sided with the government and the Privy Council did not. One of the more recent cases, the Chief Justice made a ruling, which there was a dissenter on the tribunal. One of our local judges dissented. The Privy Council agreed with the minority decision. And it was a decision, I do believe, that was maybe not quite as inconvenient to the government, but didn't necessarily help them per se. Now, the fact of the matter is, we have reached a point in time where I no longer am willing to give the cabinet, the government side of the bench, the benefit of the doubt. On an individual basis, there are still those who they are doing work, so we could judge them on their work. Some people are cynical, and I understand why. They look at the few successes and they say, well, this is a waste of time, because at the end of the day, we know the totality of what is being done or what is not being done. But I don't think the government deserves the benefit of the doubt. So now, why should I assume that this is being done in good faith, that this is being done for the benefit of the country? Why should I assume this? Now, granted, it is too easy to assume that it is being done in bad faith. So that alone gives me pause to 100% commit to that. But what did I say in the introduction? It does not matter what the intentions are. The intentions could be good, the intentions could be bad. The result is what I am concerned about. Governance, unfortunately, is more often than not a results-based business. In education, throughout life, to some extent, the process is as important, if not sometimes more important than the result. But when the result affects everybody in society, regardless of how good the process was, a bad result means that at the end of the day, ultimately, it's the wrong process, it's the wrong decision. And in this case, dare I trust the government to make changes to our final court of appeal now? A time conveniently when they may or may not have other things coming down the pipe. I myself did not understand how the local judges could rule on the side of the government with regards to the challenges to the local government elections, terms being extended. I myself, as a layman, thought it undermined the democratic process. And then, as a communications amateur / professional, I don't know where I would classify myself, to be honest, I found it very interesting that the government did not even understand how this could look bad, or they did not seem to care. The more cynical critics of the government will pick the latter, not the former. But in this, it's not even about what I think they're doing or what I think they're not doing. At the end of the day, now is not the time, to borrow a phrase from the Prime Minister, jacket the scene by making changes like this. And then on top of that, maybe I'm wrong, I did not go back to double check, so if you want to lambast me, rake me over the coals for that, fine. But I'm not entirely sure to what extent was this part of the consultations. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Even if it was, even if the public wants it, is now the right time? And I would say no. To some extent, it is difficult to put complete faith into our local judges. The government ironically praised them when they got a ruling on their side. So, now, with that said, it's between a rock and a hard place. Because I'll agree with the Prime Minister on the point that the Privy Council itself does not want us there. But I do have to wonder, to what extent is this timing just one of convenience? And what could be coming down the pipe that they might not want to have a repeat of what happened last year with regards to the local government elections? Now, I am fairly certain that if the Prime Minister was in the opposite role, if the roles were reversed and it was a UNC government putting this forward, I'm fairly certain the Prime Minister will most effectively oppose it. Based on similar arguments to what I've presented here. Now the opposition has come out, the opposition leader originally with regards to constitutional reform called it an election gimmick. And she originally said, to be fair to her, this is well, she said, expect nothing will happen. It's a con job they intend to use as a PNM manifesto for the elections that's soon before us. And to some extent, she might be correct. You get the entire party to come on board. And this could be similar to the whole local government election thing, right? And by that example, what happened to local government reform? A lot of promises were made, and then almost nothing has happened since then. Now, maybe one could argue they're waiting for property tax to come online. The implementation of that has been questionable at best, given the sheer uncertainty and fear it has generated within the population. It makes me think that, hey, these guys really don't know how to do something as complicated as this that has the potential to be so unpopular. It's really outside of their depth. And if the opposition leader is using that as an example, I can't fault her. Because we didn't see anything come out. Once local community elections happened, everything was on pause. And they delayed property taxes implementation. And I am curious to see what's going to happen come September when it's essentially the deadlines are going to start coming back up again. And let's not forget the fact that one of the features of property tax is deferring payment for the elderly who can't afford it, except that your inheritors will more or less have to deal with all that debt. Somehow that's a feature. Somehow that's a benefit. I don't have to deal with it. I could saddle my son, my daughter, my whoever inherits my estate with all the debt that I couldn't pay. That's fair. That's a way to fairly treat with situations that can't afford it. I mean, granted, I understand the harsh reality of if you can't afford a property, sell it. But don't come and pull the wool over my eyes that blatantly. Now, opposition MP, actually that was quotes from him, sorry. I mixed up with the opposition leader, who she did speak before. That was what I was meaning to say. She did speak before the convention. And now MP Dr. Rula Munlan, he spoke more or less at the same time. He was the one that said expect nothing. But the opposition generally is saying, look, it's a con job for the upcoming general election. Now, here's the thing though, and let's go back to the coat of arms / the Privy Council. I don't think it's necessarily a con job. I think the con job is part of it, potentially. Right? Similar to what worked with regards to the local government elections, at least as far as it may or may not have worked. To some extent, we'll never be 100% sure. And if you look at what's going on in North America, if you look at what's going on in the USA, it's the same thing. The Democrats are trying to make this election about certain things, including the abortion issue, which, when you think about it, was not the most pressing issue in the American press at the time. Immigration was, the economy was, foreign aid for conflicts abroad were, the ethics behind that foreign aid was, and what's going on in Venezuela, price of oil, global inflation, global energy prices, all these things were things in the forefront of the American national media. And I'm not saying that abortion is not an important issue, but it's a highly politicized one by which it's going to be extremely polarizing. Lord only knows what that's going to mean, what that is going to mean for all these other issues if that becomes the forefront, ironically speaking. All of a sudden it's just sidelined because we need to bring up something else in order to win an election. Okay. So I wonder to what extent is this going to be the attempt to replace crime and the economy and the limitations of the energy sector to drive the economy moving forward in the upcoming general election. The failures of the police leadership of strategy with regards to crime plan reduction or crime reduction planning. But while I could agree with the opposition that I do think that this Privy Council thing is one of the key points, one of the key benefits, even if it was tacked on, even if it was unintentional. Now, to be fair to the CCJ, we don't know how they would rule or not rule. We just know that it seems as though the Privy Council is not giving the government what it wants. And generally speaking, I don't think, for the most part, at least outside of the death penalty, anybody has brought forward significant complaints over how the Privy Council rules on matters of national importance when it comes to the governance of the country. No one outside of Cabinet and the PNM complained about the Privy Council's ruling on the local government election term increasing. So again, I do have to ask what the timing is. And dare I say this, if regardless of what the intentions are, because we judge others by their actions, we judge ourselves by our intentions. Let's not try to bother with what the intentions are. The results are bad enough. Will this be the straw that breaks the camel's back, upset the balance by which a government, which has a lot of controversies over its head, somehow was able to stay ahead of the opposition? Dare I say, this to me should be an issue big enough to upset that apple cart. Now, does it mean that I'm endorsing the UNC? No, it's not. No, it does not. But to some extent, if there was anything that I would say, now is the time we need to vote these people out of office, no matter who gets in, because they're hitting a bottom line. To me, my perspective, this might just be it. I'm not necessarily willing to commit fully to it, and you could say that's a bit of a coward to me, but this is a complex situation. But the point is, I'm getting there. And when I say I'm getting there, I'm not saying I'm getting there and it's going to take 6 more months. No, I'm getting there and it might take a couple more weeks, depending. Or a couple more days. Or maybe a couple more minutes. Because the implications of a move like this, I think, is beyond the pale. And I shudder to think what the outcome could be if allowed to pass. Because if the part of the judiciary that pushes back against government excess is no longer there, then what is left? There are other things that came up in the PNM National Convention, certain things that they don't want, which I find interesting. At the end of the day, again, I thought this was constitutional reform based on national consultation, not a PNM election ticket. So in that regard, I do think myself and the opposition, to some extent, we agree. Now, how are you, the public, going to take it? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the daily review here on WSN's Talking Point. We'll be right back after this.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
WSN's talking point. Switching gears, of course, there is growing concern with regards to the monkeypox situation coming out of Africa. There is warnings going out. I believe the WHO declared it a public health emergency. Of course, it's not like COVID. This is a disease, this is a virus rather, that is much better understood. A virus which we may ourselves have some protection over. Now, Ministry of Health, the minister himself, he did say that there is cause for concern and they will be screening at our airports to try to protect us from the virus coming into the country. To what extent such screening will be effective, I believe it's a similar test to detect the virus, a PCR test, I think it was. I don't know how timely the measures would be and how easy it would be for things to slip through, like potentially things could have with COVID. There was one case famously where a traveler found out that he had COVID after the fact and basically turned himself in after flying back into TNT. Now, I find it interesting that if this monkeypox situation gets out of hand, I'm going to bring it up again. We could screen at our airports all we want. What's going to happen with regards to illegal migrants? Now, granted, the odds of the monkeypox getting to Latin America and then to us is not anywhere close to like what it was with COVID. It's, however, a minor possibility that if we want to be responsible and thorough, we should at the very least ask. Now, monkeypox apparently is related to the smallpox virus. There were vaccination drives in the past with regards to smallpox, so there's some degree of protection with the elderly population. Not sure to what extent that will help with herd immunity for the entire population. And of course, it's smallpox, monkeypox. It's similar, but not exactly the same. So there's all of that. I'm not a doctor. But generally speaking, it does not transmit as easily as COVID. And the point of origin might not necessarily have the same risk factors as, say, the point of origin with COVID, which is believed to be in Wuhan, China, which then spread through tourism to the rest of the world. Where it is, I believe, in the part of Africa that it is, I can't remember if it's in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and other countries. If foreign travelers do not frequently go there, then that eliminates one big risk factor. Meanwhile, and I just thought I'll mention it, of course, number of dengue cases have gone up enough that the Minister of Health is concerned, and he said that we're facing an outbreak situation. Although we've crossed 820 for the year, it's now at, I just want to get what the final numbers are. Well, regardless, we had another death. We're now up to 8 deaths now from dengue. This time an 8-year-old girl. It just points to the fact that, look, the last 3 of the last 4 victims, I think it would have been, a man in his 30s, a man in his 50s, and now a child. I do wonder if in this case it's not so much about risk factors per se, but rather about how we deal with it as individuals. Yes, we could complain about not spraying enough, and the minister has offered reasons why. No one has necessarily come out with technical reasons to counter the claims given to us by Vector Control and the Ministry of Health. But I do wonder if at this point, because we're not seeing widespread death, which then would make the questions about government doing more to control the situation more precedence, right? It could be, we're over 820 infections, but again, over the span of what time? 8 deaths. We had, I think it was something like 10 to 40 people die of the flu or flu-like symptoms before COVID was official in 2019, in a week. So this might not reach the level where government intervention, because government intervention will have some negative consequences to our rights, to other aspects of our lives. So it's not something to be done easily or willy-nilly, not to mention they'll have a large bill. To what extent is this still within the realm of we having to try to be responsible for ourselves and not take flu-like symptoms for granted? Not to say that we're going to have to panic like COVID, but still, it's not as though it's limited to one subsection or one demographic that we could point to and say, well, all right, all of you just have to be careful about this one risk factor and that's it, the end of it. Fortunately, the numbers are, the death and the mortality numbers are not that high. Last thing I want to get into before we welcome the ASP, and this might be something to hit further on, later on in the week. Maybe the good lady might want to speak about this, but I'll just bring it up now. There was the whole situation with the Santa Rosa project, and in fact, I spoke about it with Karen, where the chairman of NH International, he brought it up publicly. Then at some point, I believe last week, it came out that no one actually complained about the situation yet. And now it's come out that apparently NH International and one other contractor have officially filed challenge proceedings against the HDC's procurement process. And the HDC decided to just cancel the whole thing. Need I remind you that before, we were hearing messages from the HDC or other people involved that, you know, everything was fine, there's something wrong here, the processes are fair and transparent and blah, 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 whatever wording they use, I can't remember specifically. From the HDC, they don't want to be disparaged or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it canceled the notice of intention to award a contract from 30th of July. So now we have to ask the question, why? Unfortunately, the government is going to say, all of this speculation and anti-government talk, blah, 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 blah. Right, but look at this on the face. If the PNM was in opposition, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley will be all over this. All over this. He probably would be lambasting whoever would be in government instead of him up and down the road. In Parliament, in public forums, in press briefings, and the party will be singing in unison behind him as one chorus. Because on the surface of it, it looks bad. So forget benefit of the doubt. It is unreasonable to assume that there's nothing to see here. It's unreasonable to make that assumption. So the onus is on the government to explain. Will they explain? Maybe, maybe not. And that comes with the caveat that it's going to be a reasonable or effective explanation. More often than not, they try to explain something even when they did not intend anything bad to happen. It's all done in good faith. Somehow, their powers of explanation are so deficient, they end up making themselves look more suspicious, even when they were not trying to do anything untoward. Not saying that they always or frequently try to do things in bad faith or corrupt, but given the lack of information and some of the results we've seen, I can't make a case to defend the government against things like this. And it's not necessarily my job to do so unless it's something that I could think of as a reasonable explanation, which I have done in the past. I have provided potential reasonable explanation for things that look questionable, whether it's whatever the opposition did, the government did, a business did, the police did, etc., etc. But in this situation, it seemed as though HDC was happy to hold strain because nobody actually filed an official challenge. And then once they did so, apparently it's reported, we're going to cancel the thing. The obvious low-hanging fruit implication is that they could not fully justify their position. They could not deal with transparency. That's the obvious, that's not necessarily the truth, to be fair, but it's so obvious, it's hard for us on the outside looking in to not believe that to some degree. And it behooves the people involved to explain the situation, because while the lowest bidder is not always the best thing to select, You had to come real good to explain to us. You had to be upfront to say why you took the highest bidder. All of the money is supposedly saved in lawsuits that you won. Don't talk about lawsuits that you lost. What about this now? Where in some cases this bid is twice the amount of some of the other contractors, and yet they got it. Are we really so deficient of funds that we need Belt and Road money that badly? And has even caused one contractor to basically cry foul because he has gone through the process in good faith and he has lost money now to develop his bid, and essentially it's all got up in smoke. And I think it would be one thing if he lost his bid, fine. But for someone to invest money into an exercise only for it to be cancelled because someone challenged it, implying that something in bad faith happened here, I would be a bit upset too. Because the implication was, I never had a chance. You wasted my time and you wasted my money so that you could appear to be transparent and fair, but you never intended for me to even be in the running. Because you have other criteria of which we do not know what it is, and potentially this contractor did not know what it is, so obviously how is he going to successfully compete in the bidding process? Your government working for you. Who is the you in this case, dare I ask? What is he working for? Dare I ask? Because I think depending on who it is you're speaking to, those mean very different things. That's the implication with stories like this. And as the good lady said, there's probably more to this story than me say. I'm more in the mortar than the pestle. But we'll end things there. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears. The ASP is here with us. Stay tuned. This is Talking on WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust. Prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of have to stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's been the victim,
right,
or the man has been the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
And we have in the hot seat the one and only ASP Ashraf Ali, TTPS Media Ambassador to Talking Point and WASN. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Sean. How was your weekend?
A lot of sleep. A lot of sleep. So I actually was a little bit early this morning, believe it or not. Have to get back in gear for when school reopens and traffic turns back into what it is. You know what I'm talking about, right?
That's part of the...
Especially with Puerto. Once you're in Port of Spain, you're just going to have that, but East-West Corridor, you're going to have that.
So true.
Now, there's a couple of things. Of course, you want to get here to speak about extortion, which I think even after the last time we came to speak about it, that came up again in the police's communications. But before we get into that, there was an incident that happened. Gonna try and be brief, right? Try and be succinct. Of course, 6 individuals were killed in a shootout with police. I did not necessarily spell it out, but I understand that the parents are questioning how come none of the police got shot. Although with that said, based on the way how these things goes, the training police have, the equipment the police have, the fact that it's relatively inexperienced people with pistols trying to shoot at distance against cops in cover. I could see how, regardless of how it started, this is the outcome. This is not the first time we've seen it before where, again, the police going into an exercise where they expect to be facing armed assailants. They're not going to go in and set themselves up to be in a disadvantaged position. They're going to be in an advantageous position to try to control things. Of course, people are going to ask again, did they have to get killed? Did they have to die? Maybe who shot first? I would say this, to some extent, when you're in a gunfight, at the very least, wrong place, wrong time, unfortunately, but this is why it should never reach this point. And I also do suspect that too many people that are involved in crime are too quick to pull the trigger, too quick to think that they could fight off the police. I don't know why. Too quick to maybe say, I'm not going to jail, and they end up dead. Now, of course, the question is this excessive force? And there's certain things you could ask, but I do think you have an interesting thing to point out, because here is an example. One of the parents has pointed out, I was all for killing the bandits until it was my child.
And
the regret of it, I think, this is what we have been warning people about.
And it's let's be real. Persons lost their lives, and I continue to say that when we come here, when persons lose their lives, whether the persons we code them as criminals or they were involved in criminal activities, any life loss is a group or family or community is put into turmoil. At the end of the day, they have parents, they have brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, they are family, they are human beings. right? So there's nothing, I'm not taking away anything from anybody stating that this is something that we want. However, police officers are trained, and the training is self-preservation. We are trained not to get injured. We try our best not to get injured and our colleagues to get injured. That is our training. We are not going there to because in a firefight and we're supposed to come out and say, well, okay, well, the firefight was fair because 2 police got shot and 2 bandits got shot, so that was a fair firefight. No, we don't. That is not the training of the training. And I do not take any law enforcement across the world, right? And even militaries across the world who are highly more skilled in certain areas go into a firefight, go into a battle where you have guns and say, we're coming out with, okay, we have a certain amount of casualty.
Because philosophically, that makes no sense. If you all go into a situation where it's a fair fight, well, the problem is it's easier for the thing to escalate, get out of control, and then get civilians involved because the police won't be able to control the situation. That's why people might not understand. It's not overwhelming force as in, well, they have, you know, a ball of sand and we're going to gut him down. It is overwhelming force in the sense of we're going to hit you. We're going to have 12, 16, 24 officers. Hopefully you surrender because you see it's futile.
At the end of the day, this is notwithstanding an investigation that's taking place, but I want to make it abundant and clear to the public. Police officers are trained, and they are trained in a particular manner to defend themselves at the same time, and that of the public when they go into a situation like this. All police officers on that exercise, and any exercises of that nature, when they're responding, they will discharge a weapon if they need to be. Nobody is going to ask, did you shoot us yet? Or did you shoot us yet? Okay, it's my turn. That is not how it's going to be. It's a split-second decision in that incident, and the action was taken. Unfortunately, persons lost their lives. That will be dealt with through the investigation to determine whether the force was used of force, all of that. But the mere fact of the matter is that we are speaking about the brazenness of criminals of varying ages, that we continue to say it is not happening. We have evidence to support that even in accordance with the Children Act, the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, 18 years or under, we are seeing young criminals, and to the extent we can call them child criminals at the same time. Male and female, right? The emotions are there, and we are seeing it, and these are some of the situations that we are getting involved with. It comes back straight to my topic, what we were talking about here, that we have young criminal elements that is also doing extortion. And is extortion we're talking about also?
Is it that the public, because I guess it's one of those things where if you don't have to face the reality, you kind of just nod your head and accept it, right? But you don't necessarily understand the implications of young people being involved in the gangs. And I think to some extent now, the first father that I saw went on the record, he didn't blame the police. He just said, and I don't know if he's changed his opinion, right? I haven't kept track on who said what. But he said he wasn't blaming police, right? He was just like, he wished it didn't have to end up this way. And he called on parents to keep an eye on your kids and know what they're doing, something that you yourself have said. And I do wonder if to some degree we really don't understand what it means. Because yes, it sounds bad. Ooh, children were shot by the police. Except that at least initially, 3 pistols were recovered, right? 3 pistols were recovered. This is reportedly the people that were conducting at least 2 home invasions that we know of. And at the end of the day, the public, if you're fed up about crime, what does the age have to do with the response? And it goes back to what we said. It's not so simple now. It's not so simple and straightforward to just, you know, deal with criminals the way how you want them to be dealt with.
And that is the sad reality of what we are treating with. We have the issue of extortions, and we have discussed that topic earlier, but it has to come back again because it is still happening. Same thing like the marketplace robberies on online. It's similar to that you keep informing person, but there's a unique situation with extortions that you do not get a number of business persons coming forward to the police to give information as to what sort of threats that they are being placed under, they come out and speak generally and make statements that yes, it is going on and yes, it is going on, but we do not have any direct information to treat with it. Now, that is one aspect, because I said, I continue to say, in order for us to treat with any sort of investigation and to determine how we proceed with this investigation, you have to come forward and give us information. If I made an allegation that you extorted me and I never made a report, it's just an allegation. But if I'm paying you and everything is okay, I am still being extorted, but nobody knows that our arrangement, right? And that is that is the situation that many of the business people are faced. They are between a rock and a hard place in the context that they are afraid to come to report to the police of the individuals who are extorting. The police may have some knowledge of information that these persons are involved in extortion, but we have no way to no evidence to support it. And the evidence is that if you are handing over money, but nobody wants to say I am paying for protection. And these criminals and these persons who dwell on that knows that for a fact. So that is how they continue to get their monies from these individuals.
Is it that the public doesn't necessarily trust the police, or is it that the criminal elements, they're just so afraid at the level of violence that it's not even a police question, they just feel too exposed and they don't want to risk anything?
I think it's twofold. One, to the extent that they don't believe the police. A lot of persons, because of the trust and confidence in the police service at this point in time, they don't believe it could be dealt with in the manner it should be dealt with. But at the same time, when they make a report, just like any other report, if they identify someone in a criminal enterprise, a criminal gang, they are afraid for their lives and their family, because at the end of the day, they do not have that level of protection, or they don't believe they have that level of protection in Trinidad and Tobago holistically at this point in time. That's the fear of crime perception at the point in time. It's not a police issue per se. It's the country's fear of crime perception, that they believe it is so rampant across, because you're hearing a lot of different things happening in different forums. So that is making it more challenging for both parties to address.
Now, you said young people were engaged in extortion. Is this that the people who go into these businesses are young individuals?
That I'm saying. So I'm identifying that when you look at the persons in these gangs, that is associated with some gangs, it's young people, 18 and under, 25 and under. So you have youths, and then you have teenagers who are part of these criminal gangs who are doing these type of things, right? And sometimes they are doing it. They're so brazen to go into a business and actually ask for the owner and speak to them and tell them straight off, you have to do X, Y, and Z. Reports come to the police. Yes, the police have those reports, but it's difficult to deal with to identify the individual. We do have, they was calling for a specific unit, but there's no need for a specific unit for that. We have the gang intelligence unit, which in each of the divisions we have gang intelligence unit who are mandated to treat with it, because that is considered to be being a part of a gang, and that is gang activities. So the unit is there. The legislative authority is there for us to treat with it. But these type of crimes are not reported in the manner not reported to the police in the manner in which people expect. You hear about those reports. You hear from the different community groups, you hear from business organizations of their clients or their members involved in it. Those are talking points within their group. They speak among among themselves. But when it comes to bringing the information directly to the police and identifying the group or identifying the individuals, not many of them are willing to take that step because of fear for themselves, their business, and their family. But it is, in fact, a serious situation that we are continuously monitoring. Let me give you a simple example of how extortion escalates and we don't see it. How many times we have events in and around certain venues? And then you see a group of individuals coming and telling you, I want to I'll go park your vehicle. You park here or park here and park on the street. I want $20 for that. Or $5. Pay me $5, I'll park your vehicle. Now, the driver of the vehicle decides to pay that money. It may not constitute the context of extortion directly, but it's the foundation of how it is built. Because if you don't pay it, that your car may get broken into. Because they may have somebody to break into your car at the same time and tamper with your vehicle because you didn't pay what you were supposed to pay to them. That is how simple it is. That is the foundation of how these things are happening. And we do not know because we facilitate. So when we go to any venue and we have a party and you see some pockets of individuals on the streets, you're willing to pay that money. Why you're willing to pay that money? Because you're facilitating the process and you're making it easier for people to do it. Right? It extrapolate that to the big business. It's similar to that. So we started us. I'm showing you how small it, how simple it is, and we don't see it until you have a business and feel it. Is a difference. But you're not feeling the $20 you pay because you're going to have FET, and you want to come back and find a vehicle right here. But you're facilitated, and you're saying, and the defense you're using for that is that them fellas trying to make a little hustle. Right? That's why
I know.
They're making a hustle. So they go take care of my vehicle on a kind of.
Is that a fair hustle?
But exactly. But if you don't pay that money that they're asking you for, you run the risk of getting your vehicle broken into. That's how simple it is.
The one thing I want to hit down, I find it interesting that children are involved even on this. And I think it goes back to the lamentation of so many parents of the people involved with the shooting, when they basically have to deal with the ultimate consequence. And again, at least one of the parents, at least at one point, said parents need to keep an eye on your kids, know what they're doing, ask questions, whatever, blah, blah, blah. In this case, and the people who they send out to extort the businesses, the people who they send out to be triggermen, these might be these young kids who might be very reckless. That's why we're seeing a callousness to life. But then I think it's also something to point out with regards to parents who are turning a blind eye. They need to understand their kids are the expendable foot soldiers. No one is going to really be that bothered if the police kill them. With regards to the criminal organization, at least to some degree.
Yes.
That's our cost of doing business. So your child who you think might, I don't know what parents are thinking, if they have any indication or clue that they might be involved in something illegal. But the risks in this, they need to understand, it's not as though that the gang is going to necessarily have their back 100%.
Then we have the issue of where young people are utilizing, or a lot of persons are utilizing social media, growing up on social media, brandishing weapons, putting up pictures showing that they have weapons and posting and posing with all of that. I'm saying that some parents need to pay attention of what your child is posting up on social media, and you may not know directly, but you may find out at some point in time. Because when you see those images going up there, the question is what sort of image that the person who posting it up is establishing. Because you are not members of any law enforcement agency. You are not authorized to have any firearms or anything like that. But you are having and posting up with these type of weapons and brandishing these type of weapons and sharing those images and making videos. When a situation happens, the first thing is you hear some narratives of those are props. Those are not real weapons. Look at it. Whether it's right or not.
Where do these props come from?
But the reality is a messaging that has been sent out to the public.
I will hazard a guess that there are far more AK-47 and AR-15 and SCAR and FNs and whatever real guns,
yes,
than there are props.
So we have to be careful.
Hollywood does not have us a backlot in C lots.
We have to be very careful in first the use of social media and how we portray yourself and your images by this so-called gangster style. You want to pull gun and show gun on it and make videos of that. You're putting yourself up, literally making yourself a law enforcement target.
Also target to other gangs.
And to other gangs and to other persons because they are saying that you have these type of weapons. Now, even the general public who may view in these videos, when they see, if they recognize you, or they say, well, and you as a person who had guns, and I see you coming, there's a different type of reaction that will take place. We look at the amount of robberies that are taking place, where a person casually go into a place, pull a gun on you, take a robbery and walk out like if you just walk out of your house and you just went to the bank and withdraw some money and go on about your business as normal. I think you have more challenges going in the bank to get some money over the counter than how they do the robberies. And this type of behavior it sets the foundation for a response. Because when you hear robberies and you hear home invasions and you see things like these happening, the police officers and the public expect the police to respond in a particular manner to avoid this continuing or hold the perpetrators. And if any individual in Trinidad and Tobago who decides that they want to shoot at the police officers are trained to respond, because we are trained to protect ourselves and protect the lives of other citizens on the streets or in the roads of Trinidad and Tobago. Right? The public, we are trained, that is our responsibility to protect. So it's not only ourselves, but bystanders. We have to protect them.
I could see it now. If the police are shot at and you'll back away to say, well, oh, now we can't use lethal force against people that shoot at us, all of a sudden the public will say, oh, you're cowards out. Now, with that said, it's to highlight the point again. Just because they're young does not necessarily mean that these 6 were acting within the reasonable confines of the law. Granted, yes, there's an investigation that will take place to hopefully give us a final determination. Let's wait on that. There's something else to bring up with regards to this, but I'll hold on to that for now. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll open the phone lines, maybe put a closing point on all of this. Stay tuned. This is WSN talking about where we're back. We'll be right back after this.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Amplia said, just before that we open the phone lines, there's one aspect of this case that I did mention last week that I felt is a bit of a chink in the armor. I am willing to essentially believe that the police, they got in a gunfight with 6 individuals, they won the gunfight. I have no problem with how that went on. If you understand certain aspects of how these things go, you will understand why that's plausible. The one thing that's missing is body cameras, which would have really helped the police in this situation, assuming everything is above board, because it, at the very least, while it wouldn't have given us everything, let's understand, the police are going to wear body cameras. It's not going to show us what's happening inside the house until you go inside the house. But it could have at least kind of showed us, you know, how the situation escalated to the point of becoming a gunfight.
Well, like I said, and we agree, and the commissioner did in fact has made this a talking point and has addressed it, that body cameras are very important. That is one of the things that we are trying to ensure with situations of these situations like these. It's only showing how important the body cameras are and the footage from the body cameras for investigative purposes, to show transparency and everything and how things happening. So yes, I know there will be questions as to whether or not they were wearing body cameras, and it will eventually come out as to what is the circumstances. But at the end of the day, I think body cameras, we agree that body cameras, and even our association did in fact say that body cameras is an integral part of the tools that we use right now, and we should be utilizing it. We are moving forward to getting additional body cameras. Mm-hmm. Right? The commissioner will speak on, will address that in the future with respect to the new body cameras. But for now, I'm saying that when we have incidents like these and interactions of these natures, body camera footage can also give a different perspective. So it augurs well for transparency, trust and confidence in the police service and a fair investigation. Nevertheless, you will still have detractors and persons may not want to believe the information, but we could that is the reality of how these type of things go. But without any evidence to put forward holistically, I'm not saying there's nothing at all, I'm just saying generally, if you don't have footage to counter or put up proper argument, you will always leave speculations about how things happening, and that is a risk that incidents of these nature, without body camera footage to show another side, it tends to put us in a very bad light.
Yeah.
So I endorse the fact that the commissioner is in fact trying to make sure that we get body cameras, and even if it has to be not even mandated or a much more discipline within the office, disciplinary procedures within the police service to ensure that officers who are going out there and engaging in the public in these type of environments or responding to situations of this nature, body cameras. And it does not even have to be situations like these that you need to use body cameras. Even a simple road traffic exercise,
yes,
with a body camera can give a different perspective as to how the officer, customer service with the officer, and how he treats the public generally. So we would not get one side always.
Or say there's a case of public intoxication, have the body camera on, yes, so they can't claim something else that maybe didn't happen. And the officer would, but I mean, that's my argument for body cameras for the whole time. It's insurance. That's basically what it is.
But it's
video recording is...
It's insurance on one aspect of it for any sort of misconduct on either side.
Yeah, it goes both ways. It goes both ways.
But it also provides a level of evidence,
yes,
when you are doing investigative work at the same time.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
So it has its values across the board. It's just that we need to get more body cameras on, and more persons are wearing body cameras. And the narrative of every police officer, I am saying that not every police officer should have a body camera. Those persons who are engaged in the public, because there are some who are not engaged in the public.
Right.
So not because they are police officers, you would wear a body camera in the office.
Yeah.
That's waste of a tool, right? It's not useful in that environment. That is saying, so officers who are engaged, who are on patrols, who are going out on the ground and literally on the doing the patrols and the exercises and everything. Those are the ones I believe, where we consider them to be frontliners, are the ones that should be using the body cameras.
All right, folks, we'll open the phone lines now. Is the time you could have your say. There's a lot to talk about. Of course, there were other things in the press with regards to energy sector. Still getting some words about Dragonfield and Hope. And we also, of course, we could go into this shooting as well. I mean, the implications to the public are, this is what it looks like. Some amount of regret, at least with regards to the families of the victims having to deal with the deaths of their loved ones, regardless of their guilt or innocence. They are still human beings with families. We have a call on the line. Good morning, caller. You on here? Caller, good morning. Morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Police stopped me in a roadblock and they asked me to open my tongue. I want to get out to see what's going on. What's the procedure for that?
Well, sir, my answer directly, you are supposed to come out of your vehicle, open your trunk, and see what the officers are doing. You must be present there when the officers are searching your trunk, you're searching your vehicle. It does not mean that you have to be in the officer's face, literally, but make sure that you're in a position to observe what the officer is doing. The reason for that twofold: to ensure that there's no allegations that person saying that whatever was found in the trunk is not mine, and the officer is confident that there is no allegations and it is fair and transparent, right? So you should, that way you're supposed to do. And if any officer asks you, if you get stopped in a roadblock and they say they want to search your vehicle, search your trunk, don't sit down in your vehicle and pop the trunk and allow the officer to search the trunk. Step out of the vehicle at the same time and you open the trunk.
All right, okay. Fair enough. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, caller. I mean, there is the scenario could go further. A lot of these things, you know. What happens if the officer doesn't want you to get out of the car?
Well, I am saying that the officer is wrong.
Okay.
Right? That is not our procedure. You ask the driver to step out of the vehicle, ask the person to stand on the side, so you can have control of the individual when you're searching the vehicle. But the individual must have a view of you searching the vehicle.
Who should actually physically open the trunk? The driver or the officer?
The driver could open the driver should do that, right? If it's automatic, you pop the trunk, whatever it is, you come to the back of the trunk. But before the officer starts to search the trunk, that individual should be asked, do you have anything in here to hide, anything, any narcotics, any firearm hidden in the vehicle? Because I'm going to search your vehicle. Do you have anything to hide? Do you have anything to tell me? Right?
Now, for people to understand, because I think it's different in the states, or at least in different states in the states. Do the police need anything like a warrant to search a vehicle?
We do not need a warrant to search a vehicle, right? Under the Firearm Act 1601, if we stop a vehicle and we have reasonable cause to believe that somebody is, and that's the law. That's the open caveat that we have in law, that if we have reasonable cause to believe that someone is carrying firearm and ammunition or firearm and ammunition in a vehicle, we have the authority to stop the vehicle and do a diligent search.
Or narcotics. Now, if someone, I mean, to some extent, I can't really come up with a reason why they might want to protest not allowing the vehicle to be searched.
There are many circumstances that persons do in fact say that you can't search my vehicle, you have a warrant, and I'm saying to the public,
right,
we do not need a warrant to do that.
But let's just say generally the situation is they're not comfortable with, they want to wait for supervisor or something. Do they have the requirements?
They don't have the requirements to sit and say and wait for a supervisor to come and search my vehicle because they believe that the police officer there is too junior. They want to see somebody more senior before they search a vehicle. It does not work like that.
And if the officer does anything that they should not be doing, generally speaking, would you say it's better to let it go, comply,
and make a formal report as to what happened
after the fact?
Right. Just make sure you get the officer's name, right? His name and regimental number. That is what you are required to provide. Not your address, your name and a regimental number. Right?
That's in the officer.
That's the officer.
Yeah.
Right? And that is what we are required to provide to the public.
Okay, we have another call on the line. Good morning, caller. You on here? Caller?
Yes, I'm here.
You're on the air. Go ahead. Don't listen to the TV caller. Speak to us on the phone.
Okay.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air. You could go ahead. Do you have a statement or a question?
Still listening to the feedback.
Yeah, hello.
Yes?
But I'm not on the TV.
Because there's a delay. Don't listen to the TV caller. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. I'm calling from Vistabella. With regards to the conversation taking place now, should there be, if a vehicle is stopped and searched, should there be a written document for whatever the police finds?
Well, once the police finds anything in the vehicle, the occupants of the vehicle or the driver of the vehicle at that point in time will be informed as to what was found.
Yeah, but I am saying that it should be.
Hold on, and the written document.
Writing.
No, the written document that you are asking for is that if it is an illegal entity, something illegal, you will be arrested. You will be arrested, conveyed to the nearest police station. The officers will make an entry in the station diary as to what they found. Now, if it's something illegal, right, you will be charged for it, and you will get your charge documents indicating what you were charged for.
So you'll have access to the documentation.
Right, and when time for take your lawyer, your lawyer will ask for the information, and the police will present the information as to what was found in your possession. Right, but if you're asking for a document at the immediate, you would not get that in immediate, because if it's an illegal item, you will be arrested for the illegal item.
I'm listening to all the TV guys say, the ASC.
Right, so you would not get the document when we find it for you, or no officer will write anything and say, well, okay, we found, I'm just using a firearm for the purpose of this conversation, that you found a firearm, and the firearm is this type of firearm and that firearm, and give you a receipt. You would not get that. And you will be arrested for that.
And if there's nothing found, you're not going to get a receipt to say nothing is found.
You would not get a receipt saying nothing found either.
Yes, but what I am aware of a situation where a vehicle was found. The police stopped the guy, and when they searched the guy, he had about $15,000 in the car, and a gold chain and whatever. And they took all of that from him, and there's apparently no record of it.
Right, so that's a different situation altogether. If that situation, based on that information, that scenario that you are speaking about, I would advise that individual to go to the Police Complaints Authority and make a formal report as to what transpired.
And it should have been done as soon as.
And it should have been done. It should have been done immediately afterwards, because I cannot realistically comment on the scenario, because I do not know the context in which the person was searched and the allegation that you were making against the officers. But if there's an allegation, if the allegation is there, the driver of that vehicle who was searched and who had that money in his possession should have gone to the nearest police station.
I listen to all the police say no.
All right, caller, we're going to have to end this there because we have another caller waiting. So thank you for those questions. Yeah, that's the problem, because we don't have all the details. To go any further would be difficult. We have Sanfan on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning, sir.
You know, this is not what I call about, but let me comment, and I'm listening to the callers talk about this thing about the trunk and popping the trunk and not being at the side. People have to be a little more assertive, because it can be overwhelming when the police stop you in a roadblock, and sometimes some officers are a bit aggressive. I was stopped already actually I was driving a car at that time. And they asked me, license and insurance, and then one officer at the back saying, pop your trunk. And I said to them, one thing at a time. Either you all want me to come out and open the trunk, or you want my license and insurance, but I can't do the two of them. And people have to be a little more assertive in those situations. I mean, it can be overwhelming, but you have to be a little more assertive because I know that I have to be present at the trunk opening. So I'm not going to hand you my license and insurance and pop my trunk while you're looking at my license and insurance and I'm still in the vehicle. So people have to be a little more assertive. That is not what I'm all about. However, let me say this. ESPRD, that shooting with those 6 individuals in Central there. You know what? I listened to the conversation and everybody talked about the body cameras and all of that. And you know what I did not see a discourse on in the public domain? The fact that these individuals rented a property in Central and basically set up a base and terrorizing people in a district. And this is where I would like to see the conversation go to. A lot of people need to be a little more observant because that house wasn't in the middle of the forest. That house had houses around it, a lot of houses around it. And the community needs to be a little more vigilant to protect themselves from these type of individuals. And that is what I would like to hear a little more conversation on. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Well, and from what I understand, it was not a crime hotspot or a place that had a lot of crime. So it's interesting they found an interesting spot to hide where there's not a lot of complaints, where you're not going to look for them.
It just compounds the conversation that we are having. We continue to have that your community involvement, both positive and negative, plays a part. So if you know that there are criminal elements within your community, in certain communities, nobody sees it.
Well, the community apparently did not have any idea.
No, and
they were taken by surprise because the criminals did not conduct any activity within the area.
However, they may not have to be conducting criminal activities, but it should have raised a red flag. Seeing a certain amount of persons in the house with no adult per se, right, and young teenagers, young adults frequenting the house. Now, I'm not saying the community is wrong, but I'm saying self-awareness of your community at this point in time is very important.
The irony is, it could have been that it started off, they looked for somewhere away from the crime hotspots to live, and then being a base of operations could have come after. I just find it interesting that potentially even people involved in criminal activity are like, I can't live in these crime later.
It just shows that when we keep on the conversation we were having in the last, earlier, where we talk about communities or you being self-aware of what is happening in your community.
Because being proactive might include it.
Yes.
We have Sugar on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Morning, caller. You're on here.
Good day, gentlemen.
Good day,
Good day, sir.
On a past occasion, when the officer was responding to enforcing all the laws, he stated that some of the laws no longer operate properly. When I was in the public service, when that come up, it was for the division to put up a recommendation to deal with it. Right? I have made endless suggestions here. Have the officers ever made any recommendations to deal with this? Or have they done it and have it been ignored?
Professor, I would say that there have been a lot of recommendations sent forward.
I talk about official recommendations.
Yes, sir.
By the police.
From the police service perspective, there have been several recommendations put forward by our legal departments when it comes to some of the laws that existed. The final outcome is yet to be determined, right? Because of the fact that it will take. We are just putting a recommendation because sometimes we realize that operationalization of the laws as it exists trying to operationalize it, we have some challenges.
What is the problem in enforcing the law on parking in Port of Spain?
And I continue to say to you again, sir, the issue is not enforcing the law. We do in fact enforce the laws. The manner in which we enforce the laws through issuing tickets for traffic violation, parking in certain areas, even wrecking in the area, it is being done. If it is being done,
all over Trinidad, you go, you see people parking all about the whole eastern main road.
Professor, what I'm saying to you, I am in support of what you are saying, but at the end of the day, we, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, need the support of the communities and the business people and the general public.
That's a cop-out.
No, it's not a cop-out. It is not a cop-out, and I will not say it's a cop-out, because I can tell you, I can tell you we have been issuing a number of tickets, and the narrative that continues to come out of general news houses and from the public is that we are only running down the law-abiding citizens, because persons believe traffic violations and not abiding by simple laws is not a criminal offense, and it's not an offense. So then we have you continue to harp on the fact that we are not enforcing laws. And I will say it again, and I continue to say it, I support you about enforcing laws. However, if you continue to enforce every single law in Trinidad and Tobago, we are going to be in chaos.
The public will complain.
Right? Because we are not making a statement that is your opinion.
We are in chaos is because you're not enforcing it.
That's
the opposite.
You are entitled to your opinion, sir.
That is an argument of semantics, but what is not is the fact that the public will protest certain things. They will complain about certain things. We know that for a fact. We know that for a fact.
The Public Service Commission is the one.
Because Professor, it reached the point where politicians will complain. The head of the THA complained about a licensing exercise. So the public...
So they didn't complain?
Yes.
You mean in Tobago?
Yes.
The police that was one case where the police was doing the job. And because the officer wife was the one who was charged, that is why he complained.
And that's what's going to happen on a larger scale.
This is what I call is finding excuses not to enforce.
That is not an excuse. That's the reality of Trinidad and Tobago currently, and the lawlessness that you continue to say that is existing. And if you sir go to your councillor, your MP or whosoever is in your area, and your community, enforce the laws in your community by wherever you live in, tell people, do not park on the streets. I want you, yourself, and your entire neighbors, let me see how you are going to do that by yourself, because at the end of the day, the police will become the scapegoat, and they continue to become the scapegoat because of you. So you can say it's an excuse, and I'm not, so we can continue with that. That is your opinion.
All right, Professor, let's agree to slightly disagree. Because technically speaking, on the principle, we do agree with you. We should have a case where all laws are enforced, and because all laws are not enforced, that is part of the problem of why we are where we are today. Because we don't have any more time to continue with the debate. I think it's a matter of individual perspective at this point. The ASP as a member of the police service, you as a member of the public. I understand where you're coming from, Professor, and so does the ASP. But I think that the unfortunate reality is, well, let me not go and spell it all out there, because there's implications. Some of it is political, which you yourself have pointed to political interference in other areas, and it's also within the. But it exists. We wreck at the mercy of the head of the Police Corporation.
They try to get me to interfere.
But I appreciate.
And when we refused, they went and called a cabinet.
The point is there's interference now.
There's interference. I'm not talking about that.
But there's interference now.
But I appreciate.
You and all, I believe, said that.
But we appreciate the comments of the caller, and I agree with you on a regular basis, caller, that enforcement of the laws is relevant, and I'm supportive of that, and I do not get me wrong, I am 100% in support of it. there are a lot more than that. It's just by just simply enforcing laws.
Don't tell me there is a lot more.
There is a lot more that we have to deal with other than just enforcing laws. But we can agree to disagree.
Caller, we have to end this there because we're over time. I'm sorry. I'm not going to comment after you go. So we're just going to leave this completely. That's it. Thank you, caller, for calling in. It's an important point to make. And I said I wasn't going to comment, but I'll just say this. The caller is pointing out something that I think the rest of the population does not seem to fully understand, which is where we have the disconnect now. But I'll leave that there. It's something that the rest of the population should understand, the responsibility to do their part. With that said, we do want to thank all of the callers who, shared the responsibility. They did their part this morning to join in on the conversation. It's something that I wish more people would do, not just on this platform, but at any opportunity, whether it's a political, whether it's from Media House, whether it's letters to the editor, what have you, in order to have your say to get out there. ASP Ali, thank you for joining me again. And facing the unfortunate topic, of course, now having to answer questions about the use of force by the police, but also informing us about the continued. I think we underestimate how big it is.
It is.
Extortion.
Extortion is. I agree. It's bigger than we think it is.
We want to admit
it is. Exactly. We want to admit it is happening and being facilitated, not willingly by some parties, and it is not in the business sector alone. We have extortion in many areas, such as construction, and other areas that we know that we have identified.
Well, yes, construction, yes.
Right, that is happening. It is a difficult situation. It's not a cop-out, but it is a challenging one because you need that information to come forward.
Yeah.
But the persons who need to come forward are the ones who are actually under fear, and if they do not feel like they get some redress with it, they tend to just comply and don't even complain, just keep on complying. But Trinidad and Tobago, it's when it comes to the criminal activities, and I keep on saying again, as a parent, it's difficult to know that your child got involved in something and you lost your life. You lost your life, so I empathize with the families who lost the children in this unfortunate situation. But like we said, parents need to take a level of responsibility, not the responsibility for their children's action, but responsibility for your children holistically, by acknowledging at some point in time that you did all you can do and you can't do enough. You wasn't able to do everything, right? By just acknowledging, and I would say that parent, the parent who came out and spoke, made a hard decision by actually coming out and saying he didn't expect his son to go to die that way. That was a hard decision, and acknowledgement that yes, his son was not 100% perfect, but he didn't expect it to be to end his life that way.
And with that said, folks, as my colleague Mr. Shaw would say, make today a good day. We could do it if we try, and that implies doing all these things, from being a brother or a children's keeper or a sister's keeper, to trying to be a positive influence just on the people who we interact with, we run into on the street, or at the very least, not to be a negative influence on their lives. Just putting that effort to not be a negative might be enough to make today a good day. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe out there. Be mindful of the public health risks. This is Talking Point on WESN. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lips?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
And I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League.
This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement. If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No, not
Let's go.